We have to talk about Stephen Miller, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, Donald Trump's number one henchman, for lack of a better word, in the aftermath of the assassination of Charlie Kirk a week ago tomorrow. I'm going to go through a lot of things that he has said over the last few days. We're going to talk a little bit about the implications of those things. And then over the weekend, unrelated to the events of last week, Rolling Stone published a long profile about him and his tenure in the White House, and I'm going to talk about that as well. Immediately following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, with less than 24 hours afterwards, he tweeted out Thursday morning, "There is an ideology that has steadily been growing in this country, which hates everything that is good, righteous, and beautiful, and celebrates everything that is warped, twisted, and depraved." That's called projection on his part. This ideology has one unifying thread: the insatiable thirst for destruction. It is an ideology that leads always, inevitably, and willfully to violence. The fate of millions depends on the defeat of this wicked ideology. Again, projection. But what is he talking about? The radical left. And Friday, he appeared on a segment of Sean Hannity's program. And it's like, if you think this guy is unhinged in writing, you really need to see him in person. He speaks exclusively in very fast-paced, apocalyptic terms, as though the end of everything is here and right around the corner. While he was on Sean Hannity, he made his message was very clear. He wants to smash every institution on the left that has any power, and use the power of the executive branch of the federal government to do that. He said, quote, "The last message that Charlie Kirk gave me before he joined his creator in heaven was he said that we have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country that are fomenting violence." He's wrong about that, about the left fomenting violence. That's an objective lie. "And we are going to do that under President Trump's leadership. I don't care how. It could be a RICO charge, a conspiracy charge, conspiracy against the United States, insurrection, but we are going to do what it takes to dismantle the organizations and the entities that are fomenting riots, that are like January 6th, that are doxing, like everybody on the right is doing right now online to everybody on the left, that are trying to inspire terrorism, that are committing acts of wanton violence, like assassinating members of the Minnesota State Legislature." Stephen Miller then made a promise to Sean Hannity. "The power of law enforcement under President Trump's leadership will be used to find you, will be used to take away your money, take away your power, and if you've broken the law, to take away your freedom." It's curious that he thinks that he can take away someone's money or power if they haven't broken the law. But, whatever. And he's not just talking about people in the federal government, but everyday citizens. And he tweeted this over the weekend. "In recent days, we have learned just how many Americans in position of authority, child services, law clerks, hospital nurses, teachers, government workers, even DOD employees, have been deeply and violently radicalized, the consequence of a vast, organized ecosystem of indoctrination." He was talking about people who were celebrating, allegedly, the death of Charlie Kirk. His message, and basically the more extreme message of Fox News in recent days, is just that the left straight up wants to kill everybody on the right. They just want you dead. Miller is happy to egg this on, and for whatever you think of the guy, he's proven to be a shrewd and Machiavellian in use of his power. How much leash is he going to be given for his purge? That's the chilling question that we don't know yet. Trump's going to give him as much leash as he wants. Then yesterday, Monday, I'm filming this on Tuesday, September 16th. And I should say, if you enjoy this episode, please click like, please leave a comment, please subscribe to my page. It's free to do so. And, all of that good stuff. Thank you for that. Then yesterday, Monday, JD Vance, from his office of the vice president in the White House, took over Charlie Kirk's podcast, because that's a totally normal thing for a vice president of the United States to do. And all of his guests during that hour were employees of the executive branch. And people are saying that's Trump's way of launching JD Vance's 2028 campaign, but I'm skeptical of that. One of his guests on that podcast was Stephen Miller. In their comments, Mr. Vance and Mr. Miller spoke in vague and menacing terms about far-left groups that they said facilitated violence. Stephen Miller said that a formal effort would be coming, with formal agencies or federal agencies rooting out what he referred to as a domestic terror movement, and that they would be doing it in Mr. Kirk's name. They are going to use Charlie Kirk's name and assassination to do any number of horrific things to American citizens over the next weeks, months, and years. Stephen Miller said, "With God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, eliminate, and destroy this network and make America safe again for the American people." Vice President JD Vance followed up by saying, "When you see someone who is celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out and call their employer." Donald Trump followed up with comments. He repeated his claim that people on the political left are to blame for the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk in Utah last week. And he said, "When you look at the agitators, you look at the scum that speaks so badly of our country, the flag burnings all over the place, that is all on the left." When you look at politically motivated homicides over the last 50 years, going back to 1975, if you extract killings of Americans on American soil by foreigners, such as 9/11, you get a breakdown as follows. The left is responsible for 65 politically motivated homicides. The right is responsible for 391, for a total of 456. These numbers are from the Cato Institute, meaning that the left is responsible for 14% and the right has been responsible for 86%. So there's that. We've gotten some reaction to Stephen Miller's comments over the last few days. Wake Up America, California Governor Gavin Newsom posted on Twitter, "Stephen Miller has already publicly labeled the Democratic Party a terrorist organization. This is not about crime and safety. It's about dismantling our democratic institutions. We cannot allow acts of political violence to be weaponized and used to threaten tens of millions of Americans." Journalist John Harwood posted, "The dark fantasies of a genuine lunatic." Journalist Jay Bookman posted, "But if you call them a fascist, they will cry." Military veteran Greg Bagwell posted, "We are watching a dystopian nightmare unfold in front of our eyes." Another military veteran, John Jackson, posted, "Listen to the language he uses, specifically the word terrorist. Trump thinks designated someone as a terrorist means that you can extrajudicially kill them outside of the legal system. This is false." He's correct. Journalist Greg Sargent posted, "Stephen Miller was directly involved in one of the largest acts of organized domestic political violence the United States has seen in modern times, the January 6th insurrection." He's correct on that as well. JD Vance, during that same podcast, said, "While our side of the aisle certainly has its crazies, it is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left." And a bunch of people went on to say that he was lying about that. Colorado Democrat Jason Crow said, "You're lying. Stop using tragedy to stoke divisions between Americans so you can grab more power." Mehdi Hassan, founder of Zateo News, said, "That's a lie. Obviously, well, actually, it's a bit true. It's not a both sides problem. Agreed. It's a specifically Republican problem." John Favreau from Pod Save America said, "That's not a statistical fact at all. I would make an assertion. I would not make an assertion like that about the right without evidence. And I'm just a podcaster. I'm not the vice president of the United States." Incredibly irresponsible. JD Vance is a pudgy, doughy little twat. Stephen Miller is a fucking mealy-mouthed, just malevolent weasel. I mean, he's like Mr. Burns, but worse, from The Simpsons. And that brings us to this Rolling Stone article that I want to talk about. It's a profile of Stephen Miller. It came out over the weekend. It starts out with an opening vignette of, the day after Election Day. He's hanging out at a hotel down in Florida and West Palm Beach. Everybody's coming around and kissing his ring and shit because they all know that he's going to be the guy in Donald Trump's second term. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be one of the people in the West Wing, in the Oval Office, with the most amount of power. And that has certainly proved to be true. Quoting from the article, more than 7 months into Trump's second term, Stephen Miller has become America's most powerful unelected bureaucrat. With Trump's blessing, Miller has been allowed to run and remake the country in a manner virtually unheard of for a U.S. government official of his rank. Think of any egregious policy from the Trump administration. Chances are it was driven by Stephen Miller. All of it bears Trump's signature, but it's all Stephen Miller. Under Miller's guiding hand, the government can deport or kidnap or rendition you or your spouse without due process to a foreign gulag. The White House can repeatedly threaten to take away the most basic of constitutional protections, such as habeas corpus. The president can launch Justice Department criminal investigations against his enemies who, by all known accounts, did nothing wrong except annoy him or refuse to help him steal an election. The president and his lieutenants can arrest you at routine courthouse check-ins, at your church, outside your kid's school, even if you have no criminal record. They've instituted a heavily draconian system of immigration arrest quotas, ensuring a regime not mainly of mass deportation, but of mass disappearances and indefinite detention in jails and newly erected camps. When the author of this article asked one senior administration official about former Fox News host and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the source unprompted said, "Pete Hegseth does whatever Stephen Miller wants him to." The Secretary of Defense. Amazing. Then the article goes back into some of his history, his origin story, how he grew up. He grew up as a teenager in Santa Monica. Miller craved nothing more than triggering the good-looking kids in school who wanted nothing to do with him because he was mean, cruel, ugly, and fucking creepy. Have you ever seen a creepier fucking human being who's still alive than Stephen Miller? He is creepy. He just looks slimy and slippery and sweaty and gross. Ugh. He had a tight-knit group of friends all throughout middle school. That all changed, though, in the summer of 1999 between 8th and 9th grades when Miller informed his friends that he couldn't be friends with them anymore. One of the things he did say was that he didn't like the fact that I was of Latino heritage, said one of the friends. So that this goes back to the summer between his 8th and 9th grade. 13, 14 years old was when the racism was really starting to kick in. The racism and the bigotry. In this paragraph, in the decades that followed, let's see here. When he worked as a communication aide in the office of Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions during the Obama years, he was so widely disliked by his conservative colleagues on Capitol Hill that Republican staff in other offices would invent or spread malicious rumors about Miller, such that he liked to play with porcelain dolls. Even today, not much has changed. As the president's policy architect and enforcer, he is obsessed, according to 3 Trump advisors, with deploying the full might of the government to stamp out what he deems to be anti-white hatred, anti-white racism, and anti-white discrimination, no matter the cost. Miller speaks almost exclusively, that's where I got this, in apocalyptic terms, in the caricatured language of military combat, forever war, and invasion against the culture and the homeland. He has yearned to erect a vast, hyper-militarized network of what he has dubbed camps for detention and mass deportation, a network he hopes will change the American political and physical landscape forever. Miller, who is Jewish, has been denounced by relatives, including his own uncle, as a one-man betrayal of Jewish moral and political values. Miller has long held the deepest admiration for the Immigration Act of 1924 and wishes to bring America back to those days. That law is notorious for making the Holocaust deadlier for Jews who tried to flee Nazis only to be denied safe passage to the United States. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? He's insane. Miller may be the avatar of the anonymous racist internet troll brought to agonizing life and imbued with power, but that does not mean he doesn't thoroughly believe in the righteousness of the ideology that he is selling. In his mind, he's the triumphant hero, a one-man antidote to effete liberalism, a holy warrior against the permissive legal and illegal immigration that has left him and his peers feeling mugged by pluralistic reality. Talk to Republicans operating at the highest level of the Trump world, and you get a unique mix of admiration and unease when you ask them what they think about Miller. He is one intense motherfucker, a longtime Trump advisor notes. What do you think Stephen Miller does for fun, like on a Friday night? I mean, I think he's already lost his wife to Elon Musk. I think she picked Elon, in their throuple. Many people are saying it was widely reported. One conversational victim of Stephen Miller's recounts to Rolling Stone what it was like to get hit on by a premarital Stephen Miller around 2017 at a bar not far from DuPont Circle. The story involves being grilled about where her clothing was manufactured and getting accused of being a globalist because she wasn't the right kind of conservative. Boy, that's how it's done, guys. That's how you pick up women in Washington, D.C. You make fun of their clothing if it's made in China, and then you call them a globalist. Female strangers aren't the only ones in Washington who think he's fucking weird. Over the years of their close working relationship, President Trump has not shied away from insulting Miller behind his back. According to 2 sources with direct knowledge of the matter, Trump has commented to others in the past about Miller's intense, awkward, and at times off-putting behavior. I'm not going to read anything from, what's her name, Carolyn Levitt? I don't give a shit what Carolyn Levitt has to say. This was funny. Senator Josh Hawley says he's glad to call Stephen Miller a friend, adding that he cares deeply about helping create a future where American families can thrive. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise said, Stephen Miller is bright, thoughtful, takes the time to listen to our members and their concerns, and has always been easy to work with. I am proud to call Stephen Miller a close friend. The White House provided to the author of the article similar statements from Senators Tom Cotton, Mike Lee, and Representative Jim Jordan, with a spokesperson saying they expected that all of the lawmakers' praise for Miller would be included in this story. It was not. That's funny. Miller touches virtually every policy and executive action, especially as it relates to domestic initiatives, effectively all documents, Trump directives, constitutionally dubious orders, and memos. The architecture of Trump's military crackdowns is in part a product of Miller's vision for dominating liberal strongholds he despises. It's a blast for Stephen, says another fellow Trump advisor in describing Miller's role in orchestrating the domestic deployments of U.S. armed forces. I think Stephen Miller masturbates while watching ICE detention videos of immigrants getting nabbed off the streets. I think it's very likely that he slaps on a pair of nipple clamps and just starts tugging furiously on that 3-inch rock-hard protuberance that he's got. The Trump administration's sweeping clampdown on diversity programs, higher education, and free speech that Trump doesn't like is a direct expression of Miller's ethos, bringing to life a long-held ambition of federalizing the conservative culture war in ways once thought uncouth. Trump's sprawling immigration and border enforcement is just the Stephen Miller Show, brought to you by Stephen Miller Productions and personally stage managed by Stephen Miller. There's more in the article, but that gives you the basic idea. Stephen Miller is running huge amounts of what the Trump administration is actually doing. He is objectively a bad guy. I don't know exactly what it was that happened to him when he was a child that he was so traumatizing that he's working it out by inflicting unimaginable amounts of pain and suffering on innocent people because of their skin color. And the amounts of pain and suffering and all sorts of criminal and civil penalties that he's about to inflict on people in this country simply because they disagree with him politically. But Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are going to take full advantage of the assassination of Charlie Kirk to do exactly that. They are going to wreak absolute fucking havoc on the left in this country. And they have 13 months before, almost 14 months before the midterm elections in order to do it. And I think most importantly, over the next 14 months is watching what they do to elections in this country. Use your imagination to imagine the worst things that you possibly can, and then multiply that by 10. And in January of 2027, 27, yeah, when the new Congress is about to be seated, if Democrats actually did win a majority in the House of Representatives, I'm sure that Mike Johnson will be heavily pressured by Donald Trump and Stephen Miller to simply say, no, these members' elections, these members are here because they stole their elections and simply refuse to seat Democrats in the next Congress, in the House of Representatives. Stephen Miller is malevolent and evil, and extremely imaginative about how to use his malevolence against the left, against immigrants, black and brown people, women, and the LGBTQ community in the United States. He is an unimaginably dangerous, powerful man. I think second only to Donald Trump. And he scares the fucking shit out of me, I have to tell you. Because Donald Trump is letting him do whatever he wants to do. He's off the leash, man. He is off the leash. His power is unfettered. I have yet, over the last 8 months since Inauguration Day, I haven't read one single story about either Donald Trump or Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, doing literally anything to rein Stephen Miller in. To say, no, maybe you went a little bit too far on this one thing, so let's dial that back a notch. I haven't read one single story like that. And the assassination of Charlie Kirk is going to be used by Stephen Miller to do any number of absolutely fucking horrific things to Americans in this country simply because they disagree with him politically. On that note, thanks for watching. Again, if you enjoyed this video, because what's not to enjoy about a 25-minute long video about Stephen Miller, please click like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my page. And thank you very much for watching. I am Hawk, and I will see you next time. Thank you.